7.3 million years ago, our ancestor species almost went extinct. But then something incredible happened. They started climbing trees. Okay, maybe not exactly like Spider-Man, but they did use their hands and feet to get up into the branches. And this skill might have been the key to our survival. See, by 7.3 million years ago, our ape-like ancestors had split off from the other apes, but they weren't quite human yet. They were knuckle-walking, big-toothed, big-brained primates with a serious case of monkey-see, monkey-do on their hands. But by all accounts, they weren't particularly great at climbing trees. Yet that didn't stop them from trying. Over the past few years, researchers have uncovered fossils of early human ancestors in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. These ancestors are part of the genus Australopithecus, and one species in particular has been at the center of a recent debate, Australopithecus sediba. This species lived between 2 and 3 million years ago, and based on its pelvis and spine, we know it walked on 2 legs. But the shape of its hand and foot bones suggests it also spent plenty of time climbing. The thumb was opposable, which would have helped with gripping branches, and its long, curved fingers and big toe could have wrapped around twigs for support. So these hominins were probably pretty good at climbing, even if they couldn't swing from vine to vine. But if they were so good at climbing, why are they almost extinct? Well, climbing trees may have been the very thing that threatened their survival. Around 7.3 million years ago, most trees in the region were fruit trees, a true monkey's paradise. But the problem was, there were also monkeys. Those monkeys had been living in the trees and eating the fruit for hundreds of thousands of years. By the time our ancestors arrived on the scene, they had basically eaten all the fruit and replaced it with leaves. So our ancestors found themselves in a bit of a pickle because climbing trees and finding food there required nimble hands and feet that were being used for something else, walking upright on 2 legs. At first, this change in arboreal lifestyle seemed to work out okay. Our ancestors shared the trees with the monkeys and just ate the leaves, but over time they began to hunt small animals in the trees, and that required even more dexterous hands and feet. Eventually, this led to a big change in brain size and structure. The part of the brain that controls movement got smaller and the part that controls higher functions got bigger, and that's a hallmark of the genus Homo, to which we humans belong. Basically, our ancestors had to use their brains more and their brawn less, but when they climbed, their hands and feet weren't free to evolve. So what happened? According to a study published in 2021, they developed the next best thing to hands, and feet that could climb, hands and feet that could at least grab onto branches and pull themselves up. Now, this wasn't like climbing for a chimp, or even for us humans. Our ancestors weren't using their hands and feet to move through the trees. They were using them to get out of the trees. This is what the fossil record tells us anyway. But there's some debate over whether grabbing onto branches and pulling yourself up counts as climbing. It sounds a bit like semantics. The problem is there aren't many fossils of our tree-climbing ancestors, if any. The ones we have tell a clear story of a species stuck on the ground. And to be fair, we don't actually know how good at climbing those ancestors were. Maybe they could climb like Spider-Man after all. But if they weren't stuck in the trees like the monkeys, then they were free to evolve more human-like hands and feet. In other words, our ancestors didn't become us until they stopped being so monkey. So either way, climbing saved us. Well, it saved our ancestors. We're looking at you, Australopithecus sediba. Thanks for watching, and thanks for your support.